how do you manage your customers, and how do you enhance their engagement with your agency. So before that, at risk of repetition again, I just give you a little bit about myself, so that you know from in which context am I coming from. So I did mechanical engineering, and I worked as an investment banker for a couple of years before I joined Griddle as a chief executive officer. So this presentation has been written from whatever our experiences have been, and one of my team members, Hiren, has been helping me with research for this. And another note to remember is that this presentation is written with the assumption again over here that the client is satisfied with the services that you've provided. And it's important for this one, right? So in this one, we're not talking about how to deal with conflicts. We're not talking about how to deal with disagreements with the clients if they are on the service side of the offering. So let's say if you've started working with them on a website and you've not delivered the website, or if their expectation has been higher from the website which you've not been able to fulfill, we're not talking about those issues, right? So it's important to remember that. So the assumption is that the client's happy with the services that you offered. How can you then improve the engagement that you're receiving from those clients as well? So that's the key assumption over here. So a quick overview. We're going to talk about what is customer management, what are the key stages. In one of the stages of course pre-conversion. So some tips on pre-conversion, some tips for enhancing engagement during fulfillment, and then what should you do towards the end. So when you're approaching the end of the project, what should you do? And then we'll open this up to Q&A as well, where we can have a conversation around some of the things. Yeah. So that's
I see more people are joining. Even though questions are in the end, don't feel afraid to ask the questions during this webinar, and we'll be noting them and then answering them. So if you have any questions, feel free to write them down.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Please go ahead. Would love to answer questions right in the middle of the webinar as well. So that's perfectly fine. So, so firstly, customer management, a core part of customer management is more often than not, your client would have already had an experience with some other agency before, and they are now replacing them with you. And so it's as simple as you just need to be better than the last guy, right? And so, so talk to them about what are some of the bad experiences that they had with them. They're very, very open about those issues with you. Talk to them as to what were certain expectations that they were not able to fulfill, that the client is expecting you to fulfill. This will also give you an idea of what their core needs are and whether you will be able to do that or not. Mm-hmm. And just to start it off, if you're a little better than the previous one, then that's good enough, right? So that's good enough to as a first step. There are of course a lot of other things that we need to do, but we need to make sure that as a first step, we at least strive to be better than what they had previously as well, right? And so that's kind of the key where customer management kind of begins. So that's the core platform, or that's the starting point of managing your customers and making and enhancing your customer experience of working with you. Mm-hmm. So there are three key stages of customer management. So the first is of course pre-conversion. So before this is the time where they've not yet agreed to start working with you. They're exploring, or you just sent out a pitch and they're considering you for some or the other service that you're offering. So needs, budgets, and timelines, right? This should be the key for you to figure out whether you can work with them or not, or this is the right time to work with them or not. So needs, budgets, and timelines. These are absolutely important to be figured out in the pre-conversion stage itself. Then when they agree to work with you and you move to fulfillment stage, it's important that you make sure they get regular updates, right? So they have all the progress that you've made available to them on demand. It could be a shared Excel sheet, or it could be a project management tool, much like let's say Basecamp or Asana or something like that, or it could be just that they're added on Slack so that they are able to check what's been happening, right? And then towards the end of the project, you need to clarify what work you've done and what should be their next steps, right? So how do they take the work that you've done with them forward, right? What should they do? And if you're able to guide them through that end process, then that also adds to customer delight. So let's look at pre-conversion now, right? So So there are about 6 things in pre-conversion that we may want to look at. And again, so pre-conversion is before they've agreed to work with you, right? So the first is knowing our clients, and this is in parts I've tried to cover this previously as well, and today we'll be expanding a little bit on that. The second bit that we should do is to establish trust. So make sure that there's absolute trust in whatever it is that you're doing with them or whatever it is that you're seeing. The third is setting boundaries. So clearly highlighting the areas that you're working on. We'll find out later in the presentation how to do that. The fourth is not to shy away from having difficult conversations, right? And then absolutely do not overpromise, do not come under pressure to close deals. And then the last, as I say always, that key to any happy relationship is to set expectations, right? Whether it is a client-vendor relationship or relationship with your relatives, with your friends, with your teachers, whatever the case may be, right? So
Yes.
key to any happy relationship is to set expectations. So let's dive into the first one, which is knowing your clients, right? Apart from understanding their budgets, needs, and timelines, one thing that is important to understand is that, and over here, when I'm saying know your clients, if you're working with an organization, I'm not talking about that organization, right? So as an example, let's say if I'm a digital marketing company and if I'm working with PitchGround, and then when we're talking about know your clients, I'm not talking about necessarily knowing PitchGround, right? I'm talking about working with Jakub, right? So what are his key objectives? What are his goals? What is the larger goal that he is trying to achieve, right? A lot of times you will find that the individual or the person that you are working with may not have the same goals as the organization that you are supposed to be offering services to. And in those cases, what becomes important is that you are able to, you know the goals of the individual as well, and then you figure out a way of trying to achieve those individual goals as well as the organizational goals.
Yes.
Right? Then what happens is that the individual that you are working with, they essentially become your own representative, right? So wherever they will go, so let's say for a period of time when Jakub moves to some other organization, or if any other product is launching or anything that happens, and when they ask Jakub, hey, which digital marketing agency do you recommend? We are the first ones that would come to his mind, right? Because I've not just helped PitchGround achieve its objectives, I've also helped him personally, right? So him as an individual as well. And because of that, he looks much better. He seems much better in front of his leadership team and so on and so forth. So this includes not just the organization that you're serving, but also the individual that you're working with, right? In understanding what their key objectives are. A lot of times individuals are motivated, their motivations are different and their fears are also very different than the organization, right? So this is one of the key parts that you need to do. The second, as we said, was to establish trust. There could be a lot of different ways of establishing trust. You can talk about what your previous experiences have been. You can share how you dealt with difficult situations previously. You can give your references. You can do a lot of different things to make sure that the customer trusts you, and the customer will not have to verify whatever it is that you've said, right? So if they are on a call with you where you say that, hey, we've improved the user or the sign up rate by, let's say, 10% than what it was last month, they should not have to check their Google Analytics to believe you, right? Or you should not have to send a screenshot. The goal is to reach that level. Sorry, you were asking?
That's a really good example with Google Analytics.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because and this becomes important because services is very subjective and it's very individual oriented, right? So even if you are an agency, from the client point of view as well, they are not working with this agency; they are working with me as Yash, right? And so if I falter as an individual, or if I am not representing facts properly in order to not have difficult conversations, then that leaves a bad impression in their mind about me as an individual, of course, as an agency as well. And so there has to be absolute trust, right? When you're giving a timeline or when you're giving a deadline, try if you can do it a couple of days before. Add buffers so that you are able to deliver before the timeline that has been agreed upon. And so there are these all small little things. If they've given a bug or if they've submitted a bug, just let them know as soon as possible that this has been resolved. Don't wait for the weekend to pass and then send out an email on Monday morning. Don't do that, right? If you've solved it Friday evening, let them know Friday evening itself. And so it is those kind of activities that build and establish trust with the clients that you are working with. The next one is setting boundaries. Now, this becomes important when the larger goal of your client is not just your services. So we're assuming that the client is working with a couple of other vendors as well in different spaces. So as an example, let's say if there's a client who's starting a startup, right? They will be taking IT services, services from us. They'll be taking digital marketing from someone else. They may be taking design from someone else. They may be taking financial advisory from someone else, and so on and so forth, right? In those cases, a lot of times what happens is that the client essentially becomes a project manager, right? And they are trying to make sure that all these 4 teams are coordinating and working with each other. So this setting of boundaries is important in cases where you are working for a client where there are multiple agencies involved, right? So the dependency. So let's say as an IT service company, I need the asset for 404 page. Now that dependency is of course on the client, but also on the design agency that they have. And so you need to set those boundaries where you say that, hey, if I need the asset, I will not be able to talk to the design agency, right? If you're open to doing that, great, right? But in case if you're not, it's not your job as the IT service company to coordinate with the design agency and make sure that the 404 page or the asset comes to you. You need to identify who will be the single point of contact. The second case that may also happen is that there would be multiple people on the client side who are working with you. So you may be working with 3 or 4 people on client side on a particular digital marketing project. And in those cases, you may have seen that a lot of time of the agency goes into getting those 3 or 4 people on the same page, right? Which should not be the case. So you've got to set a boundary that, hey, as an agency, I can work with one single point of contact, or SPOC as we call it. So one single point of contact that I can work with. Everything that your company needs to give to us, or every discussion that needs to be had with us, or from my side to yours, has to be through that SPOC, right? So it is the job of that single point of contact to make sure that all stakeholders on all sides are on the same page, and you cannot do that, right? So you need to set those boundaries. Or if you are a different kind of an agency where you like to do that, then you should charge for it, right? I mean, that's always an option. Then charge for that you'll be the single point of contact for the project. So that's where setting boundaries becomes fairly important as well. I cannot stress this enough, but having difficult conversations pre-conversion actually does a couple of things. One is that it brings out both the characters. So it brings out your character in front of the client and also the client's character in front of you. So having, let's say, difficult conversation on pricing and why negotiation could not happen for whatever reason, having a difficult conversation on why you will not be able to achieve the timeline, having difficult conversations on what should be included and excluded in the scope of work, having difficult conversations on around setting boundaries and things like that, right? So don't shy away from those difficult conversations, right? This basically is going to be a part of knowing your clients better as to what their expectations are. And so have these difficult conversations with them. And no matter, so think of it this way, that it is the client's job to be unreasonable, right? Or it is the client's right to be unreasonable. It is your job to make sure that you are able to reason with them, right? And you bring them to where you are, right? And so this makes it a lot easier, right? If you think of this as this happens a lot in democracies, right? Where leaders of countries accept that it is the right of the opposition party to object on every decision that a leader would make, and so then it makes things very easy. right? Because so if as an agency you accept that it is the right of the client to be unreasonable, then you consider that as a part of your job description, that you've got to have these difficult conversations with them. And so it's important to, and the earlier you have it in your client life cycle, the better, right? So you get to know the client a lot in detail, if you will. The fifth thing is, and this is something that you should just never do, right? So never ever overpromise.
That's true. Yeah.
A lot of times, people will ask you. So if you're a digital marketing agency, and a client will always say, hey, we're paying you, let's say $1,000 a month. Can we expect 500 users at the end of 3 months? And that might be a reasonable question from their side, right? Because they want to know what the outcome of their investment would be. However, that is not your scope of work to commit, right? Mm-hmm. Because as a digital marketing agency, your goal might end by bringing people onto their platform and having them to sign up. Your goal is not to convert them into paid users, right? So, mm-hmm. So you cannot vouch for the quality of product or the value of the product that you can commit whether people will convert or not. And a lot of times, what salespeople would do is they would do a calculation, right? If I'm getting paid $1,000, so they pay me $3,000. I do X amount of advertisements. 1,000 people will land onto the web page. 100 people will sign up. 10 people will be active, and so on and so forth. But that should not be done, right? So you make it very clear that our scope is to bring people to your website, right? Or to get them to sign up in case of the website's also. Yes. Uh-huh. However, your scope is ending at that point, and you cannot talk about how many will you be able to convert, right? Because it depends on the product, its value, its pricing, a lot of different things. So never ever overpromise specifically on those metrics on which you have absolutely no control, right? So that's an important thing to know as well. And the last thing in pre-conversion is to set expectations, right? So they know that they should know the quality, they should know the timeline, they should know each and everything about this project that they should be expecting, and the process through which you are going to deliver. So I've already talked about setting expectations previously in other webinars as well. So I'll not repeat those things, but making sure that you have difficult conversations, you understand the client's character, you show them some of your character as well. You do not overpromise, and you make sure that the expectations are set from both sides. All of these things would lead to a much happier relationship between you and your clients when you actually start to fulfill that project, right? Moving on to fulfillment, right? So there are 3 key things that we want to look at in terms of fulfillment. So one of them is to maintain transparency. So to make sure that the client is aware of whatever actions that you are taking and why. Then we'll talk about enabling updates. So implementing such processes that they can get to know whatever it is on demand. Mm-hmm. And the third and most important is to be available, right? So you've got to be available even if it is to say that you are not available. That availability has to be there, right? And so just and we'll talk about these in a moment, right? So the first is
before we'll move on, we have a question from Stephen, and Stephen is asking. I think it was still about pre-conversion. This point of view suggests an agency may also serve as a de facto project manager. Should an agreement spell out the specific roles of a client and the agency, and maybe anticipate additional fees for mission creep?
Oh, absolutely. I recommend that you do that. And we've been doing that for the past 2 years. We didn't do it for the first 3 years of our existence. We've been doing that for the past 2 years, that when we write an SOW, we include a section that says assumptions, right? So under assumptions, we write that these are the roles that we are expecting. So as an IT service company or IT service agency, a lot of times what would happen is we would be building a product, right? And that product would be like $100,000 project. And so when we are building that product, it has more than 100 pages or 150 pages. All of them are dynamic and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. The core question is always who will be writing copy for that product, right? Who will be writing copy for the website? Who will be writing copy for for all the small tips, and within the product would be writing copy for onboarding and so on and so forth on that product when it goes live. And so and that always used to be a contention, right? Another thing that would be under contention would be that who will be filling in, and these are complicated technology products, right? So another thing that would be in contention would be who will be putting in the data for testing when it goes on the user acceptance testing phase, right? Where we've built a first version of the product, it is not live in the market, but we've given it to our clients to test it out. Who will be uploading the test data? Now, if you're writing an ML product, or if you're building an ML product, there's significant amount of data that you've got to collect and implement. And it's just not possible. It's not commercially viable for an agency to do that. So since last 2 years, what we've been doing is we've been writing all of these things under the assumptions paragraph, where we say that, hey, we're expecting the client to do this, we're expecting the client to do this. And then we have a conversation about this. And would you be able to do that? If not, let us know. And then we will figure a way out. So either we will do it ourselves, for which we'll charge you a little bit more, or we'll identify a partner and then connect you with them. And then you can have a separate conversation with them, right? So another example is that when you are building a product or an IT product or an IT enabled product, you've got to go through a security check that is called VAPT, which is essentially like an penetration testing or an application testing, vulnerability and assessment, and so on and so forth. So you've got to go through that. Now, the person or the company that's building the product cannot perform VAPT because obviously we're biased towards our own code, and we cannot do that. But explaining that to clients is difficult, right? So they expect us to build a secure platform from day one. However, VAPT has to be carried out by a third party, which is an additional cost. So we write all of these things under our assumptions, and we make sure that they know that these are the things that is going to happen. And then sometimes clients would say that, hey, product copywriting is something that we cannot do. You've got to do it for us. And then we charge them for that. They'd say, VAPT, we do not have any vendor. You'll have to recommend a partner for that. And we connect them to a partner. So the goal is to make sure that they get a wholesome offering. By the same time, they know what are the things that you have considered when you written the cost of this product. So that's basically how we would go about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right.
So moving on to maintaining transparency, right? So a lot of times what might happen is that when the sales process was happening, you may have committed to a certain acquisition cost, or you may have committed to some amount of users that you will acquire, or people that you will engage with, and for whatever reason, those things are changing now for the worse, right? So you are having to pay a higher acquisition cost for the customer as a digital marketing agency, or your cost for developing the website is increasing, or the scope of designs that was agreed upon is increasing or decreasing, or whatever the case may be. It's important that it's important that as soon as you realize that something like this is happening, where there's some amount of divergence from the SOW, whether it is from the agency side or from the client side, is brought to the client's attention as quickly as possible, right? So just because it's bad news, so think of it this way: if there's a fruit and the fruit's gotten bad, then waiting is not going to make it better. It's only going to make it worse.
That's good analogy.
So a bad news, if you come across a bad news, sitting on top of that bad news is never going to make it go away or make it better. It's got to be solved right there and then, right? So maintain complete transparency, and even giving these bad news to your customers also helps you in building trust, right? And so if you're open about sharing things where you failed them for whatever reason, if you can say that, then they start to trust you more, right? If you talk about your mistakes, or talk about the issues that have happened, or explain to them what are the causes for that. The next is being available, right? And so much like how the Western world has Christmas, over here in India we have Diwali, and that's gonna be this weekend. So what's really important to do is I'm not saying that you should be available during the weekends, or you should make yourself available all the time for your clients, whether it is late nights, whether it is over the weekends, whether it is over the holidays. I'm not saying that you should be available for all of that. What I'm trying to say is that make sure that you're available to say that you are not available, right? So if a client's calling you, pick up the call and let them know that, X, Y, and Z reason I'm not available. Or even better, set an automation, right? So if client's sending out an email, just set up an auto email that says that, hey, the person is on leave from X days to Y days. What clients, so there are two things that we're talking about, right? The clients don't hate your unavailability as much as they hate not getting an answer from you. So if they know that you are unavailable, then they'll not expect an answer. But if they don't get any answer at all from you, then it just results into more frustration building, right? And so then the client starts thinking that the vendor's not understanding, or the vendor's not putting themselves in our shoes, and so on and so forth. Another statistic is that and this is not like a paper or anything like that. This is I've not researched this. This is coming from some amount of experience that we've had, is that over 80% of the questions that clients ask are simple stuff, right? So they don't want to know, why something went wrong or something like that, which is going to have a conversation of half an hour or an hour or something like that. They just want the recent graphic that you had designed, right? They just want to have an answer to a very specific question around a campaign that you ran, which is something that you can check on your phone and revert to. So over 80% of questions that clients have are very, very simple stuff. And if you make yourself available for those, then that results in client delight, right? Because in their heads, they're always comparing. And more often than not, if you're working with an organization, the contact who has reached out to you is under pressure to respond to someone else, right? And so if you help them out in that situation, they of course carry a favorable opinion of yours. Then the next one is to enable updates. So this is very, very simple to do in today's day and age, in the sense that you can use Basecamp, you can use Asana, you can use n number of ClickUp, n number of tools and platforms where you can enable your clients to see what work has been happening. More importantly, every weekend, if you set up a process where you can send out an email saying that these were all and you can create an internal template, right? So you can essentially divide that email into 3 parts. So the first part talks about where we won. So what were the things that you did this week which went really well? Then the second part talks about where were all the bottlenecks. So you highlight whether there were issues from your side or from the client side, something that was supposed to happen that didn't happen. And then you just talk about the other list of things that you've been working on, right? So if you just create an email template and then put in those 3-4 bullet points, or have someone in your organization, or have the project manager or the account manager put in those bullet points and just send that to them every Friday evening, they know what their questions should be on Monday morning, right? So they have these 2 days where they can take 2 minutes to check out your email, and then they're back on track or on the same page on Monday morning. So just enable and automate as much as possible in terms of making sure that your reports are available to them on demand, right? So then we're talking about the third part, right? So we've talked about what are the things that we should do pre-conversion. We've talked about what are the things that you should do during the fulfillment. Now we are talking about the time when you're approaching the end of the project, right? You know, or you already have an understanding that this project's not going to be continued for whatever reason. Whether it could be that they've graduated your consulting, or you may have graduated, or the project was just a fixed cost one-time thing, right? So over here, what becomes important is that you make sure that you help them build a clear roadmap of things to follow. A lot of times, if your customers do not come from the background in which you're offering the services, so let's say the person that you're dealing with does not come from the digital marketing background, something as they may not even know what are the correct questions to ask.
Yes.
So one of the questions could be, we need to have details of all the accounts that have been created on all the services that we've been using. So we've been using Hotjar and Google Analytics and Facebook campaigns and Google Search Console, or whatever the case may be, right? So one of the questions that they should ask is to have just a list of accounts, and it's a very simple request from their side. However, if they don't come from this background, they will not know to ask for that, right? And so it's important that you make sure that you clarify a roadmap to them. So you essentially create a package or a process of how your project will end with that client, right? What are the things that you should submit when you're moving on, or when the client is moving on? So just help them build a clear roadmap of things to follow.
Mm-hmm.
So here are 4 things that you can do. So one is offering help. So tell them that, hey, even after the project is ended, I'm available if you need anything. If you're stuck in doing something that we used to do before, if there's any problems, if there's any quick questions that you have, do let me know. I'll be available on weekends to take a quick call with you, and I'd be happy to help you out, right? Just person to person, right? So the second is offer a small service for free 6 months later, right? And so include that in your pricing, not in your SOW. So something as simple as an SEO audit, something as simple as a design audit for the website, or something like that. So you can choose to include that in your pricing. However, when you are towards the end of the project, you can say that, hey, I would like to offer you a free SEO audit 6 months later, right? And so at that point of time, it becomes another touch point. Since you're offering a free service, they'll not say no, they'd want to do it. And at the same time, you can have a longer conversation with them saying that, hey, how's it been going? How's the new agency treating you? What are the things that you've learned thus far? Is there any role that I have going forward, and so on and so forth. And so to be clear, I'm asking you to build that in your initial pricing itself, but not to include that in your SOW, right? Just to offer that towards the end of the project. The third thing is to make sure that you make them as a part of your family, right? And so send across your newsletters to them. Share with them how you've been growing. Share with them how they've helped you grow. What are the experiences that you've taken from that project? And connect with them on a person-to-person basis. And this essentially makes sure that they remember you and you come across in front of them. So they always say out of sight, out of mind. And you don't want that to happen for yourself, especially after offering such preferential services to them. You want them to keep on hearing about you at a very respectable frequency, right? So I'm not talking about a weekly update, because after a project with a service provider, your client may not care about weekly updates, but send out an update like every month or a quarter, saying that, hey, this is what we've been up to, and things like that. One of the things that we do is that I make sure that every Monday morning I message one of our ex-clients, right? So
that's interesting.
It's just it's just a WhatsApp message that goes out. Saying, hey, XYZ, what's up? Just wanted to connect and see how are things going with whatever project. And if you need any help from our side, just please let me know. I'd be available, right? More than half the times, I'd get a reply saying that, great, yeah, I was just thinking about you. Let's get on a call tomorrow if you're available, right? And that happens half the time. Now, I know that they were not thinking about but they get on a call.
It's great for repeated business, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so these are ex-clients who you worked with like a year ago or 2 years ago, or some people who you've said no because and this happens a lot with agency, right? Because recruitment can happen only at a pace that it does, and so you may be full in terms of projects that you have. So you may have 5 people, and those 5 people are already working on 5 projects on digital marketing, and hence you could not take up the 6th project at the time, right? And hence you had to say no. So a lot of times you may have the right fit, but just because of certain circumstantial constraints, you are not able to work with them. And so just messaging them.
I mean, it's a great source for as I mentioned, repeated business. And what you can actually do, and not a lot of freelancers and agencies do it, that they have a system for reaching out to these clients and so on. Yeah. And you can just, I don't know, say hi and say something. Hey, I saw that interesting case study about you.
Yeah.
So, something like that, something really simple. but
Yeah.
there's a lot of money hidden in the clients from the past.
Oh, absolutely. And because the thing is also with LinkedIn and everything, it becomes very easy, right? So
Yes.
you don't even have to go out and research as to what's been happening with that company. You get notified through LinkedIn saying that, your connection X, Y, and Z was in the news for this reason, right? And so you already know what's been happening with them, and then you can choose to reach out to them. So it does not take a lot of effort. It's just a WhatsApp message or whatever chat client that you're using, like a text message that you send out, and then take it forward from there. It also puts you in good light, and there's significant, as you said, significant amount of opportunity hidden there as well. And so so when we talk about growth hacks, which is I think the next webinar, I'll be talking about this, but just to kind of just add a very small thing is that if you're in sales, you're never in the business of selling, right? You're always in the business of building relationships with people, and then sales happen, right? Because they feel comfortable with you, they trust you, they want to work with you, especially in services, right? If you're in product, that's different, but if you're in services, they're comfortable with you, and hence they want to work with you, right? And so you're always in the business of building relationships. Moving on to the last bit about towards the end, it's basically just plain and simple asking for work, right? So just going on to them and saying, hey, do you know anyone else who might be in need of my services? This can lead to two things. Both of them are great outcomes for us. One is that if you've offered great services and the client's been happy, they may refer you to someone, if not now, in the future. And the second is, if you've not offered great services, then this becomes your feedback conversation, right? Because a lot of clients will say, hey, I know a lot of people who might be in need of your services, but here's why I'm not going to recommend you, right? Mm-hmm. And then they'll give you a list of things that they did not like about your service, because now there's no incentive for not sharing what you honestly felt about this service, right? So just plain ask for work from the client, right? You don't need to hide it under something or anything like that. Just go and say, anyone, any company that might be looking for my services. And just that plain simple question will be helpful. So here were about, I think about 10, 12 things that people should look after when their clients or potential clients are in pre-conversion or during in fulfillment or towards the end of the projects, that if they take care of, then that can significantly enhance the engagement that they have with clients. They can significantly improve the opportunities that they can have with that clients or through their referral. So if agencies get few things correct, their largest source of new clients will keep growing stronger, right? And then so and of course, largest source of new clients being your existing clients, right?
Yes.
And to be honest with you, in today's day and age, vast number of services companies or agencies are so bad that the expectations are little, right? So if if you don't believe me, just go on Quora and search, right? Bad experiences with services companies. Just search that, right? So bad experiences with services companies, and you'd find like hundreds of answers written over there. So the expectations are really, really small, and the opportunities that could be unlocked are really high. And so this is just a couple of small things that need to be taken care of. And that's the end of everything that I wanted to talk about, enhancing customer engagement, and would be open to any questions if there are any.
Again, really actionable. And there is a question from Steven, and Pranay from your team actually answered it, but I think we can discuss it again on a webinar here. Sure. And Steven's asking, do you recommend AI bots to intervene with client communication, or maybe a private channel instead? Thanks.
So so that depends, right? So if you're running a product where you're going to need scalable conversations with clients, so you're going to have like 1,000 users or 100,000 users, you cannot have people responding to each and every requests, right? However, if you're an agency, from that context, definitely no, right? Because putting in AI, if I have 100,000 users and if I put AI, I am perceived as reasonable in front of my users because they understand that what else could Yash do? There's just so many of us that there's no other way than AI for this company to be able to intelligently deal with us. But if I'm a services company or an agency, and if I deploy AI, I'm perceived as, oh my God, I mean, he cannot even look after one conversation as a freelancer or an agency. It's got to have human touch, right? So if you're a digital marketing agency, or if you're offering IT services or whatever the case may be, you don't need to scale your opening conversations with your potential clients, right? As an agency, more often than not, you're only limited by the fulfillment capabilities that you have. And so I would not recommend that. I mean, so you can deploy tricks where you can say that, hey, just to make sure that they enter the correct funnel, you can ask those questions. You can create a form where you can say, hey, are you looking for SEO services? They can say yes, and then X, Y, and so there could be like 2-3 steps. But make sure that you mention that the reason why you're doing that is because you want to resolve the customer's query soon, and it's important that this query is directed to the correct person in our organization, and hence we're asking for this questions upfront. So that would be my recommendations. If you're a product, there's no other way than to do an initial vetting through an AI chatbot. But if you're a service company, I would much rather recommend that there be a person who's talking to them.
Absolutely. Okay, I don't see any other questions. I'm pretty sure that people are already excited for Griddle webinar, and I think maybe on the next webinar we might show a little bit of sneak peek of the platform, maybe just one feature at a time or something like that. And then on night we'll do the huge reveal, and it will be quite fun. Now, you said that a lot of people are already joining, right? Griddle only because we started talking about it in PitchGround.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had a good number of signups and really good number of feature requests and integration requests. And from feature request standpoint, and so whatever we are seeing on the Facebook group is tiny, right? So the amount of requests that we are getting as a part of the support chat that we have in the product, it's really big. And just to give you an example, yesterday late in the night, one of the things that I did was to automate feature requests. And so that's a small feature that we'll be pushing out today evening, that if you have a feature request, instead of chatting with us about it, you can just submit a feature request, and it will by default become a part of our feature request board.
Where?
And so, sorry?
Where can we suggest these requests?
So once you, so that update will go out later tonight. So probably in the next 3 to 4 hours. So let's say starting first thing tomorrow, once you log in on the dashboard itself, we're putting those cards where you said, you can submit your feedback over here. You can ask for a feature over here. You can submit a support ticket over here, and you can start chat if nothing that works.
Okay.
And so on and so forth.
Okay, so people need to be logged into Griddle, right?
Oh yeah, because if they're not logged into Griddle, then it's more of a question rather than a feature request, right? So if they're logged into Griddle, then because they're logged into Griddle, they know that these are the things that are already there. If they're not, then it is more of a question where they say, hey, do you offer this or not? And for that, we're always there to support in the conversation.
Yeah, I was thinking about like how SyncSpider does it. Do they have like separate feedback website set up where people can suggest integrations and so on? But yeah, it makes sense there because integrations are something that you directly can see if it's available or not. Yeah, it makes sense.
Features are a little more nuanced, yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, let me check once again if there are any questions. Nope, I don't see anything. So once again, let me guys invite you to our webinars, our next webinars we will have tomorrow, I believe. Yes, tomorrow we are talking about how and why you should automate your sales process. And it will be again at the same time. So make sure you will join. It's on griddle.pitchground.com. And next week, 28th, lead generation hacks, win new client with ease. And October 29th, big day, Griddle is launching. So detailed walkthrough how to use everything. I actually had the pleasure to see Griddle in action a few weeks. I mean, I think it's more than a month ago right now, right?
More
You were
than a
showing
month
it
ago.
to me.
Yeah.
It's quite some time, and already by then it was amazing, like really useful tool. So make sure you will join on October 29th to discover what it can do. And once again, the site you need to input in your URL field in your browser is griddle.pitchground.com, and just fill in your email address, and we'll send you a notification once we go live. Replay of all the webinars are being uploaded on YouTube. And of course, you can watch them on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/PitchGroundHQ, like headquarters, PitchGround HQ. So make sure you will check it if you missed part of the webinar or the previous webinars. All right. So Yash, everybody, thanks again. This was again really insightful, actionable tips and tricks. People are watching on Facebook still, so I really appreciate it, and great presentation as usual.
Awesome. Thank you, Jakub, for today. It was amazing talking about this, and just to talk a little bit about tomorrow. So almost every one of us knows why should there be sales automation. So I'll just have like one slide on why should it be there, but then the rest of the presentation tomorrow is going to be about the tools that can be used to automate your sales process and the pipeline that you should create such that you are able to get a lot more out of it. So tomorrow is going to be about how can you integrate different tools and platforms, in which way and for which use cases for what type of clients. And we'll just have like a very small 5-7 minute talk around why should it be automated, because it's already like common knowledge that your sales process should be automated. So we'll talk a little bit about that, but a lot more on the tools.
All right. So everybody, if you want to watch this interesting topic, make sure you will join tomorrow at the same time. But for now, thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.